Hey Hydrohaven family, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into something that's perfect for beginner gardeners: growing broad beans. Whether you're starting a garden in your backyard or looking to grow in containers, broad beans are a great choice. Not only are they super nutritious, but they're also relatively easy to grow. So, if you've ever wondered how to grow these delicious legumes, today's video will give you all the basics to get started. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss any tips for your hydroponic and gardening journeys. Before we jump into the growing process, let's talk about why broad beans, also known as fava beans, should be on your gardening radar. These beans are packed with protein, fiber, and essential nutrients, making them a great addition to any diet. Not only that, but they're also an excellent crop for improving soil health because they fix nitrogen, enriching the soil naturally. So, if you're looking to start small but want to grow something that's both healthy and sustainable, broad beans are a perfect pick. Broad beans are a cool season crop, which means they thrive in temperatures between 50 degrees Fahrenheit and 70 degrees Fahrenheit, or 10 degrees Celsius to 21 degrees Celsius. In many regions, this means they are best planted in the fall or early spring, depending on your local climate. If you live in an area with mild winters, you can plant them as early as the fall and enjoy an early spring harvest. In colder climates, spring planting works best. Timing is key when it comes to broad beans because they need enough time to mature before temperatures get too hot. Keep in mind that they take around 6 to 8 months from sowing to harvest, so it's essential to plant them early enough to avoid the summer heat, which can affect the flavor and texture of the beans. Broad beans don't require fancy soil or extensive preparations, but there are a few things to consider to ensure they have the best growing conditions. Start by choosing a location that gets full sun, at least 6 hours of sunlight per day. They aren't too picky about soil, but you'll want well-drained, fertile soil for optimal growth. You can improve the soil by adding compost or organic matter to increase its fertility. If you're growing in a garden bed, make sure the soil is loose enough for the roots to establish easily. Broad beans don't like sitting in waterlogged soil, so ensure good drainage. If you're growing in containers, make sure the pot is large enough to allow the roots to spread, at least 12 inches deep. Also use a quality potting mix to give your beans a good foundation. Now it's time to plant those seeds. Broad beans are usually direct seeded, meaning you'll sow the seeds directly into the soil. Plant them about 1 to 2 inches deep, spacing them about 6 to 8 inches apart in rows. If you're planting in a garden bed, you can space the rows 12 to 18 inches apart, giving the plants enough room to grow and spread. Broad beans are relatively hardy and can handle a bit of cold, so don't worry if temperatures drop a little after you plant. If you're concerned about frost, you can always cover the seeds with a row cover or cloche to give them extra protection in the early stages. Water the area well after sowing to help settle the seeds into the soil, but avoid overwatering. Broad beans don't like soggy conditions. Keep the soil moist but not waterlogged, especially while the seeds are germinating. Once your broad beans are in the ground, they don't need a ton of maintenance. But there are a few things you'll want to keep an eye on as they grow. First, regular watering is key, especially when the plants are young and establishing roots. As the beans grow and mature, they become more drought tolerant, but consistent moisture will encourage healthy growth. Broad beans also benefit from occasional feeding. While they don't need a lot of fertilizer, a balanced all-purpose fertilizer in early spring will help boost their growth. However, avoid too much nitrogen, as this can encourage lush foliage growth at the expense of the beans themselves. Staking or supporting the plants is important, especially if you're growing them in a windy area. Broad beans can grow quite tall, up to 5 feet or 1.5 meters in some cases, and will need support to keep them from toppling over. Broad beans are generally quite hardy, but that doesn't mean they're immune to pests and diseases. One common issue is aphids, which can be found on the undersides of the leaves. If you notice any, you can use a gentle soap spray or introduce beneficial insects like ladybugs to control them. In terms of diseases, broad beans are susceptible to fungal infections, especially if the weather is wet. Good airflow around the plants is essential for preventing fungal issues. If you're growing in containers, ensure the pots have drainage holes and aren't sitting in standing water. Additionally, avoid overhead watering to keep the leaves dry, as moisture on the leaves can promote disease. Harvesting broad beans is one of the most rewarding parts of the process. You'll know it's time to harvest when the pods are fully swollen, but before they begin to dry out. The beans inside should be firm and plump. Gently pop the beans out of their pods, and you're ready to enjoy them. If you're growing them for fresh consumption, you can cook the beans right away. However, if you'd like to save them for later, broad beans can be frozen or dried. Simply blanch the beans in boiling water for a couple of minutes, then transfer them to an ice bath before freezing. To dry them, let the beans sit in their pods until they become leathery, then remove them and store in airtight containers. And that's a wrap on today's video about growing broad beans. They're a beginner-friendly crop that will reward you with delicious, nutritious beans while also helping improve your soil. Whether you're growing in a garden bed or container, broad beans are a perfect addition to any garden. If you found today's video helpful, make sure to like, comment, and share it with fellow gardeners. And of course, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next video. We've got more gardening tips and tricks coming your way. Until next time, happy gardening from your Hydro Haven family.